Today, something fun and exciting for the very first time on this channel, a Spinet piano. Stick around. Hi, this is Ted Barsula with Alamo Piano Galleries. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and also take a look at our online store at alamopianogalleries.com. If you have any questions or comments, and I'm hoping that this particular video about spinets will attract some comments, go ahead and leave them. We like to have the interaction with you and also hear stories. Everyone has a specific story sometimes about a specific piano. And so those are always the most interesting thing for me, is that because I believe that every piano has what I like to call a medical report and a history card and a biography. So it's always kind of neat when you sit down and play it. It tells you a history of where the piano's at. So to make my point, this is the first time of all the talking and references to spinet pianos, this is the first time we actually present a spinet piano. And before I shot this video, I was thinking about what can we do? And this piano, I saw it coming in off the truck the other day, and it's been really a long time since we've had a spinet delivered to the store. This is probably the first one in, I don't know, maybe a couple of years. I'm not saying we haven't sold any. It's just that the ones that we have seem to sit around for a while. But here's the point. At the current moment, we have in stock a little over 30 spinet pianos that are all somewhere in the neighborhood of this kind of condition. While I'm talking about how many of these we do have in our inventory, I have to admit, not all of them are tuned, not all of them work perfectly, and not all of them will tune up perfectly. And that is the problem with spinet pianos. They're incredibly affordable. They're super nice to have. You can find some with a nice nostalgic furniture styling cabinet. They were extremely popular. And let me tell you a little bit about spinet pianos. They first debuted in May of 1935. It looks like the first manufacturer was Winter and Company, and the model they put out was a musette. The thing about spinet pianos is they were manufactured from about the mid-30s up until around the late 90s. By that time, I don't know of too many people or manufacturers that were building spinets. And at one time, 50% of all piano sales were spinet pianos, and there were different types. The Winter one that first came out was called a musette, and it was 25% less expensive than a standard upright piano at the time it came out, and you could buy some of the Winter musettes, and early spinet pianos went for under $300, which was a major milestone, and that is why the spinet piano for quite a period of time in the United States was the top selling piano in the world were spinets. And part of that is, as you can tell when you look at it, is that I think originally the design was to make two pianos out of the soundboard of one of those 50+ inch saloon pianos. So if you cut it down, the soundboard, you could make two smaller pianos. The problem came in designing a case that was going to be smaller, and where can you put all the components? And what they knew about uprights at the time as to what was discovered and invented to make a spinet piano was to shorten the keys, and instead of having the action on top, drop it. And I like to use the word dowel, but the professional word was a sticker. So let me show you. So I have an old Baldwin display, and this is probably from the 1970s at the latest, I'm guessing. And what you see here on the very top, this top key, is a typical spinet action. And the way they fit the action into a smaller case without having to go up real high above the height of the soundboard was they had like a dowel or a pull rod. But professionally, I think the word was sticker. And so that would attach to the bottom of the piano action. So you would have a shorter key, and all of this was recessed. So you can see that the hammers are right at about the height of where the end of the key is. And this is how it really is on this piano because it's a spinet. There's also something a little bit bigger than a spinet, and it had a smaller dowel or sticker. And so when that action went, it was a little bit more responsive only because the length of the pull rod or the dowel, the sticker, was shorter. And down here is the top of the line, what Baldwin wanted to sell you in terms of their action, which is a full direct action or a full blow piano because the action sits on top of the end of the longer key. Some of these things, as you can tell, every single one of these, every key on the piano had these kind of attachments to the end of the key. And part of the problem, as Larry Fine so perfectly stated, is that made for an often noisy and troublesome part of the action and very poor leverage. And I can attest to the noise because this piano in its action did make a little bit louder of a noise when we recorded it. And I will say that this particular piano is a Primrose model manufactured by Sohmer, and this is number 729. It was built in 1956 and has had very little done to it. It's in, I don't want to say pristine shape, but for considering its condition and its age, it's in really good shape. The hammers are in good shape. It tuned up quite well. I went through it once, so it could use another passage, but I thought it sounded so good, and we were at a complete lack of videos today, and I thought spinets are often talked about. They're often given not very good high remarks, but I often tell people, remember that when a spinet is perfectly adjusted and tuned well, Nat King Cole used to play one every week on his TV show because you could see him from this farther up instead of sitting by. It was easy for him to sit at a spinet on a higher bench. It looked like he was sitting at a table. Let's have a listen to this one. Now, after listening to that, and I was bragging about how it tuned up, it does need a little bit more work. But my point is, these are sometimes the kind of pianos people are looking for to get as their starter or first piano, something that's been around for a while, is broken in. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the action on a Spinet piano is extremely light, and at times it can be a bit sluggish. As a result, I overplayed, I overextended my reach, I hit some keys. I like leaving those flubs in. This was a totally inspired performance based on the piano. And my only complaint that I have about Spinets, besides all the other things, and this is something that I never thought of until I had to sit down and tune it, is that the shorter dimensions of the string length does present a problem with getting additional vibrations. They're always called, people call them different names, different waves, off frequencies, all these other kind of things. All I can say is that there's additional noise in the small stature of the string that can interfere with the note that the string is trying to produce. That's the best way to put it. There's also, the easiest way to put it, there is a technical for what those are called, and they're like inharmonic notes that seem to ring based upon, in this instance, I'm going to say these are older wrapped strings in the bass, and so they do generate a lot of really weird, freaky overtones if some of the overwrap starts ringing a little different. The other thing I wanted to mention is that in the high end, it's not normal to get a really long, sustaining, singing kind of tone. This particular piano does have that. And most Spinets will have that, but it's going to take a lot of time. And time is all that it takes to make a Spinet piano decent, and that's the one thing we don't seem to have enough of here or every other store I've talked to and anyone else that deals with pianos. Spinets are at the bottom of the list because they're a little bit more work, because there were so many of them. At one time it made sense if they were harder to tune, but there were lots of them. If you could get good at it, you could make a lot more money. This day and age, if you only tune Spinets, you could probably keep your tuning file agenda completely full, because there's a lot of people out there with Spinets that can't seem to find technicians. A lot of technicians rather tune large grand pianos in pristine environments rather than some old Spinet that hasn't had any attention. It doesn't mean the pianos are bad. It means that they're not going to play and sound real well if they're all out of tune and may need some minor repairs connecting to pedal work and stuff like that. If you have old Spinet story, let us know. If you want to play a Spinet, go into any one of our stores, Alamo Piano Galleries. We should have at least one, if not two Spinets sitting around. I do know there's uprights at every place that we have a store. So go in and play an old Spinet, look for an old Spinet, see how much they are, see how much you can get, and see if you can find one that plays and sounds good enough to consider taking home for yourself. Meanwhile, this is Ted with Alamo Piano Galleries, and if you're looking for one of those kind of Spinets, hey, give us a call here. We're always anxious to move out little pianos like this. Thank you so much. We look forward to you next time.